This is Tahir Benjaloun's The Sand Child read along. So I hope you have your copy of the book from the library or your local bookstore. This is chapter 14, Salem. It is now 8 months and 24 days since the storyteller disappeared. Those who came to listen to him no longer turn up. They have dispersed since the thread that brought them together has been broken. In fact, the storyteller, like the acrobats and the other vendors of odd objects, had to leave the large piece of ground which the local authorities, at the instigation of young technocratic town planters, has cleaned up, in order to build a musical fountain, where every Sunday jets of water will play to the accompaniment of the Papa of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. The square has been cleared. There are no more snake charmers, no more donkey trainers or apprentice acrobats, no more beggars come up from the south after the drought, no more charlatans, no more swallowers of nails and needles, no more drunken dancers or one-legged circus performers, no more magic jalabas with 15 pockets, no more kids simulating an accident under a truck, no more men dressed in blue selling herbs and hyena's liver to ward off evil, no more ex-prostitutes turned fortune-tellers, no more black tents enclosing the mystery to be kept preciously in the depths of one's memory, no more flute players delighting young maidens, no more shops where people ate steamed sheep heads, no more toothless blind singers who have no voice but insist on singing about the passionate love of Kais and Layla. No more men showing erotic pictures to the sons of good families. The square has emptied. No longer a merry-go-round. It is now simply a piece of ground, cleared for a useless fountain. They have even shifted the bus station to the other end of town. Only the Club Méditerranée has remained in place. The storyteller died of a broken heart. His body was found near a dried-up spring. He was clutching a book to his breast, the manuscript found at Marrakesh, Ahmed Zahra's private journal. The police left the body at the morgue for the regulation length of time, then put it at the disposal of the capital's medical school. As for the manuscript, it went up in flames with the old storyteller's clothes. We shall never know the end of this story. And yet, a story is written to be told to the end. This is what Salem, Amar, and Fatuma said. These three, all elderly, with time on their hands, had been meeting ever since the land was cleared and the storyteller died, in a tiny cafe on the edge of the site, which the local authorities' bulldozers had spared because it belonged to the Moqaddam's son. The storyteller's most faithful followers, they found it hard to accept that everything had suddenly come to an end. Salem, a black, the son of a slave brought back from Senegal by a rich merchant in the early years of the century, offered to continue the story. Amar and Fatuma were not enthusiastic. Why you and not us? Because I've lived and worked in a big house like the one described by the storyteller. There were only girls, and a vague cousin, not richly endowed by nature, a dwarf, came to the house from time to time. He would stay for several days without going out. The girls had a good time. We could hear them laughing all the time, without knowing why. In fact, the dwarf had an enormous sexual appetite. He came and satisfied them one after another, and left with money and gifts. Being black and a slave's son, I had no luck with them. But that's got nothing to do with our story. Yes, it has. You see, let me tell you what happened to Zara, Lala Zara, and then you will tell me your story, each in turn. But you aren't a storyteller. You don't have the gifts of Si Abdelmalak. May God have his soul. I may not possess his skill, but I know things. So, listen. This whole story began on the day of Ahmed's death, because if he had not died, no one would have learned of these events. First, The corpse washers, called in during the morning by the seven sisters, who had met in the old dilapidated house, had no sooner gone into the room to wash the corpse than ran out again, cursing the family. Women washers, not men, should have been called, because, after all, Ahmed's body had remained that of a woman. The sisters know nothing of this. Only the father, the mother, and the midwife had shared the secret. You can imagine how shocked even the seven sisters and the rest of the family were. The old uncle, Fatima's father, was there in a wheelchair. He was weeping with rage, gesticulating with his stick. He demanded to be taken into the room where the dead man lay in order to beat him. So he was taken to see Ahmed's body, which he struck with his stick so violently that he lost his balance and fell on top of him. He yelled out for help because his jalaba had got caught in the corpse's teeth. He pulled and pulled at it, moving Ahmed's head. The wheelchair, which had fallen on top of the old uncle, held him in an indecent position, with his entire body stretched out over Ahmed. However, it was a ridiculous sight, not an erotic one. The servants ran in to rescue the invalid, who was frothing at the mouth. They did their best to stifle their laughter. When they had released their employer, they saw Ahmed's female body and uttered a cry of astonishment, then took away the old man, who was in a profound state of shock. The funeral took place in secret. Strange to say, the body was buried at night, a practice forbidden by our religion. It is even said that the body was cut up and given to animals at the zoo. But I don't believe this, because I have heard something else. A rumor soon spread that a saint had just been buried in the cemetery, a saint known as the Saint of Blessed Fertility, for he could ensure that a woman gave birth to only male children. I now realize how legends about saints come about. This one began very soon after his death. Usually, a few years have to elapse, and tests are carried out. Our saint had no need of all that. He is now in paradise, and the other day I saw masons building a marabout tomb, a room around the grave. I asked the laborers what they were doing. One of them said it was for a new saint, a rich, powerful man who wished to remain anonymous, and had ordered the construction of this little shrine. I'm saying this word marabout. I actually have seen this word written millions of times, but I can't get any Moroccan to tell me the actual pronunciation. It might be marabut. Okay. The architecture is very curious. The room is surmounted not by a single dome, as are most marabout tombs, but by two domes, which, when seen from afar, resemble the breasts of a well-endowed woman, or, if you'll pardon the image, a pair of fleshy buttocks. The police have already investigated. The whole thing is shrouded in mystery. Since the police were unable to discover the name of the individual who had ordered the building, they are not taking any action. He must, they are telling themselves, be something of a big shot. Anyway, I'm sure he's someone important, someone with money and influence. But why would he give our character this posthumous recognition? Did he know him before? Was he aware of the drama of his life? Was he a member of the family? There is no answer to any of these questions. Personally, I think it is more interesting to try to understand how our character's destiny is continuing beyond death, in a sainthood fabricated entirely by some mysterious individual, than to guess how he escaped from the circus troupe, or even how he died and at whose hands. But I do know what happened during the last months of his life, though I should say suspect, not know. She still slept curled up, her mouth tightly shut, and her fists between her thighs. She told herself that the hour of damnation had come, and that those whom, by the nature of things, she had hurt would take their revenge. She no longer had a mask to protect herself. She had been handed over, defenseless, to a brutal world. Abbas, the circus boss, was a brute, physically and mentally. He weighed over 200 pounds and took every opportunity to demonstrate his physical strength. He beat the circus boys with a belt. He often forgot to wash and shave, but spent hours arranging his mustache. which covered up a good part of his face. He said he had the strength of a Turk, the faith of a Berber, the appetite of a falcon of Arabia, the finesse of a European, and the soul of a vagabond of the plains. In fact, he was a tribesman from the mountains who had been cursed by his father and expelled from the tribe along with his mother, who practiced black magic. Banished from by their family and clan, the son and mother soon no. The son and mother joined together to continue their evil deeds. Utter lack of scruple, a determination to harm others, to exploit them, to rob them, even to murder them, made them a dangerous couple, ready to do anything, capable of anything that would serve their purposes. They seldom remained in the same place for long. They were constantly on the move, not to avoid the police, whom they bribed wherever they went, but to find new victims. Abbas, so violent, domineering, and contemptuous with his circus employees, became a gentle little boy, bowing his head and lowering his eyes when confronted by his mother or anyone representing authority, and immediately offered his services. He acted as an informer and a supplier of virgins or young boys to the Cade, the village chief, or the police chief. His relationship with his mother was a very strange one. He often slept in the same bed as she, laying his head between her breasts. It was said that he had never been weaned, and that his mother had gone on feeding him at the breast well beyond puberty. His mother loved him violently, but would beat him with a stick studded with nails, and tell him that he was her man, her only man. She was training him so that he could go back to the mountain and bring misfortune to the whole family, especially on his father. He acquired skills, drew up plans, prepared formulas for poisoning the food and even the well, the only well in the village. He was possessed by the idea of a total massacre. He saw himself clambering up the heaped corpses of the tribe, triumphant, his mother on his back. Over his shoulder she would admire the work of their child, whom she had reared in her own image. They both dreamed of that precise moment. The mother had admitted to him that the prospect filled her with joy. She got up and jumped onto her son's back, and he galloped around the room. The son got a huge erection, put down his mother, and ran off to relieve himself outside, behind a tent, preferably the one in which Zahra slept. One day he battered down the door, woke up the girls who were with Zahra, and sent them packing. He was now alone with Zahra. His trousers were already open. With one hand he held his member, with the other a knife. He yelled at Zahra to let him have his way with her. "From behind, you fool, give me your ass. It's all you've got. You've got no breasts to speak of, and I don't want your vagina. Give me your ass. I'll give you the best time you've had in your life. You do it by yourself. I'll teach you how to do it with others." He threw himself on her, but even before penetrating her, he ejaculated. With a furious cry, he slashed her back with the knife. Abbas left, cursing her, and went back to cry between his mother's breasts. A few moments later he came back with handcuffs, attached Zahra's arms to the bars of the window, and raped her with an old piece of wood. Zahra was no longer Princess of Love. She no longer danced. She no longer was a man or a woman, but a circus animal, whom the old woman exhibited in a cage, with her hands tied, her dress torn to the waist to reveal her small breasts. Zahra had given up the use of speech. She wept, and the tears flowed down her face, on which the beard had started growing. She had become a bearded lady, visited from every corner of the city. People's curiosity knew no bounds. They paid dear to get near the cage. Some threw peanuts at her, others razor blades, others spat at her in disgust. Zahra brought Abbas and his mother a lot of money. Her silence, however, disturbed them. One night the old woman untied her, gave her something to eat, and took her to the bathroom. The old woman insisted on washing Zahra once a week. As she was pouring water over Zahra's body, she stroked her, felt her vagina, and said such things to her as, "It's a good thing we're here. We saved you. All your life you've been usurping someone else's identity, probably that of a man you murdered. Now, you'd better obey us and do as you're told. I don't know what my fool son sees teasing you. You've got no breasts, you're thin, your buttocks are tiny and hard. Even a boy has more flesh on him than you. Anyway, when I put my hand on your skin, I feel nothing. It's like wood. Whereas with the other girls, even the ugly ones, I get some pleasure. If you keep refusing to speak, I'll hand you over to the police. Our police have a way of making the dumb speak. One night, with a full moon, Zahra felt that Abbas was going to attack her again. With her free hand she picked up 2 razor blades that had been thrown into the cage by spectators. She undressed and put the 2 blades in a rag, which she placed between her buttocks. Lying on her belly, she awaited the brute's visit. She had read in an old magazine that during the Indo-Chinese War, women had used this method to kill enemy soldiers who raped them. It was also a form of suicide. Abbas's body fell on Zahra's like a ton of weight. His member was cut. Yelling with pain and rage, he strangled her. Zahra died at dawn, and the rapist later died from loss of blood. That is how Ahmed died. That is how Zahra's brief life came to an end. Salem looked very moved by his own story. He gave a long sigh, got up, and said to Ahmad and Fatima, "Excuse me, I didn't want to tell you the end of the story, but when I found out about it I was so overcome that I looked everywhere for someone to tell it to, so I wouldn't be the sole witness of such a tragedy. Now I feel better. I feel relieved."
"Sit down," Amar cut in. "You're not going to get out of it like that. Your story is terrible. I'm sure you made it all up and that you identified as much with Abbas as with the wretched Zahra. You're a pervert. You dream of raping young girls or boys, and because you're ashamed of it, you punish yourself in the Asiatic manner. I know the end of this story. I found the manuscript the storyteller was reading to us. I shall bring it along tomorrow. I salvaged it from nurses at the morgue."
Fatima said nothing. She gave a faint smile, got up, and gestured as if to say, "See you tomorrow." That's the end of the chapter.